down the rabbit hole of rock and roll's past, present, and future. It's Barstool Rockers with your hosts, Jim Finn and Dan Michaels.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. It's Dan, and we got a chance here in our local market. We're in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is about 90 miles to the east of Minneapolis, and Randy Bachman's going to be coming to town. Now, Finn, I'm sure you're right there with me. This is like classic rock staple. This is iconic.
I mean, between the Guess Who and Bachman Turner Overdrive. Yeah. Those are so many huge classic rock staples.
He's coming to town, so this is kind of a promotional interview for the show coming up, and we wanted to share it in the podcast channel, so here we go.
We're talking with Randy Bachman today. He is going to be playing at the RCU Theater at the Pablo Center on January 19th. Hello, Randy.
Hello, nice to hear from you guys.
Well, you've got a new project. It's a tribute album to George Harrison. And one of the first questions I think we wanted to ask you was, what was the initial inspiration for this album full of George Harrison music? What inspired you to record this?
Well, way back when I was a kid in the Guess Who, we would wait for the next Beatles album, or Beach Boys or Stones, but we'd always do the Beatles songs, so they were great on the radio. So I would, me being the lead guitar player, I was designated way ahead of time to sing the George songs. So all my life I've sang Don't Bother Me, Taxman, that kind of thing. And the other singers in the band, like Burton Cummings, who were a much better singer than me, would sing the McCartney and Lennon songs. So I always waited for the George songs, and I cherished them because there's maybe one an album. And then again, our drummer sang the Ringo songs, right? Every band, this was a new template for the band. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I got invited to Liverpool for John Lennon's 75th birthday party.
Oh, wow.
With a bunch of other guys from Toronto, lawyers and other Beatle fans. And a friend of mine named Jeff Parry had produced a stage show called Let It Be, which traces the Beatles from the Black Leathers in Hamburg right up to the Let It Be, on the roof of Abbey Road. And so I go there to see the stage play, and I know this guy's from Calgary, right? So he's got great British guys all acting as John, George, and Paul, and they've got the accents. That's a wonderful show if you're a Beatle fan. And so after they debut in London, they go and play Liverpool. He invites me to Liverpool, and they have it on the day before John's birthday. So I go to this place in Liverpool, and it's phenomenal. The fans are going nuts. The next day I go to the Beatle Museum. I go on the bus tour of Strawberry Lane. I go to Penny Lane Barbershop. I go to Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane Barbershop, get my hair cut, see Ellen Rigby's grave, go to the Beatles Museum. Julia Lennon comes, John's half-sister, brings everybody John Lennon glasses, gives us his favorite birthday cake, which is chocolate brownies full of walnuts. He didn't like cake. And so I've got this John Lennon brownie in my freezer right now. And then I'm thinking, gee, the younger Beatle was George. Maybe I can celebrate George's birthday because I love George songs. And I found out George was 2 years younger, so his birthday was last February in 2017. So his birthday's now going to be coming up like this coming February when his birthday year is over. So I thought, I'm going to take every George song I've ever sung and some I've never sung and reinterpret them as a songwriter, doing a song differently, like Lenny Kravitz did American Woman, Junior Walker did These Eyes, other bands have done other songs of mine, and reinterpreted them and made them new songs for a new generation. So I'm going to do that with all George's songs and make them unrecognizable with a new groove and new chords and a new tempo until I start singing. And then suddenly you go, bing, the light bulb comes on, and you can sing along. So you've gone away this morning, you'll be back again tonight. And you can sing it right away.
Yeah. Now
So I set upon doing that. I started with 20, 25 songs, found ones that I could sing that had some credibility to them, took some songs that had 12 and 15 chords, made them 2 and 3 chord songs like While My Guitar Gently Weeps or Give Me Love. I made them real powerful songs as opposed to what George did, but some of them were very pretty and very light songs. I made them monster rock heavy to show that, and I'm a Beatle fan, so I know that the Beatles took almost every song and did it 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different styles. The style we heard is the style that they all agreed upon, but I've got versions of Strawberry Fields and Taxman and Revolution that nobody's ever heard, that were ballads that were 3, 4 times, 6, 8 times, and the Beatles tried all this experimenting, so I did it with all the George songs. And for me, it was a project of joy and love, because all the Beatles preached was joy and love. They put their careers on the line. John Lennon put his on the line, saying, give peace a chance, and love is all you need. And the whole thing was about love, and when I met Giles Martin, he was mixing the tapes for Love in Las Vegas for the Beatles, and that's where I heard the Hard Day's Night chord and dissected it with Giles there in the studio. And you could Google that, Randy Bachman Hard Day's Night chord, and you'll find me telling the story of that chord and actually playing the chord on my radio show. So I got involved in this whole Beatle thing, and I thought, what am I going to call this? And I was in England a lot. I had a flat in Covent Garden. And everybody would go, well, by George, and of course by George. Like here you would say Bob's your uncle. There they say by George. I thought, well, I'm going to do a thing called By George, by Bachman, because these are all songs by George, but they're by me. So I put out the album, and I wrote Between Two Mountains, which I thought how George must have felt going to a Beatles session between Mount Lennon and Mount McCartney, who each show up with 24 songs, and when they get tired of that, they say, hey, George, you got any songs? And he'd go, yeah, I have a song called Here Comes the Sun, or Taxman, or
Gem, yeah,
whatever, right? And
then if
how George on his own became a giant mountain between these two mountains, and that's why I wrote Between Two Mountains. That kind of bookends the album,
sure.
And that's how I felt George felt. I've had many DJs call me who didn't know I wrote that song and go, where did you find that lost George Harrison song? It's incredible. It's every song he ever wrote all put together. And I say, well, I wrote it, and I took little bits of every song. The solo in Between Two Mountains is what he played in And I Love Her. No. So I took his guitar parts and sprinkled them in different songs that aren't in the right song.
Oh, that's
so you'll hear the My Sweet Lord lick in the middle of, I don't know, Don't Bother Me, or I don't know, I can't even remember them now, but I know guitar players who listen to the album going, wow, we found 7 solos that were in the wrong songs. And I go, great, that's what I wanted.
Yeah, George had that amazing backlog. I mean, because he only did get 1, maybe 2 songs off an album, by the time he got to All Things Must Pass, he had this entire catalog of all these, pseudo masterpieces. Have you ever met his son, Donnie?
No, I tried really hard, but he was on tour when I was in L.A. I premiered this album a year ago at B.B. King's Club on George's birthday in New York, and then it took me a while to get to L.A., and Donnie was on tour at the time. I couldn't see him.
Oh, it's too bad, because I think maybe that'd be an interesting collaboration between you.
Well, I was trying to get him to sing on Between Two Mountains with me. It would have been great, because he does sound like George.
Oh, that would be phenomenal. Now, you're inducted into the Canadian version of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
What's your theory on the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame down here? Because you're in 2 bands that should be slam dunks to be in there. And they've just kind of overlooked all things quality and gone, it just seems like a commercial kind of let's grab money here.
Well, it took me a while to find out, but they are not associated with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland.
Really?
Right, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland is that, and it's a museum, and my American Woman guitar was in there for like 12 years on display. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame New York is owned by Jan Wenner and Rolling Stone magazine, so it's 2 separate entities. And I've never had a good word ever said about me in Rolling Stone magazine. Never been in print except the summer I left the Guess Who, which was in 1970. There was a pretty heavy-duty article in there where they quoted Burton Cummings saying really bad things about me because I'd left the Guess Who, and I would never make it in the music business being a straight arrow because I didn't drink or do drugs or smoke or anything. And I proved them all wrong 5 years later when I hit #1 with You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet and the Not Fragile album with BTO.
Yeah.
Don't get me going on Rolling Stone.
I don't think all my new albums by George and my one previous that Heavy Blues sent into Rolling Stone, and I heard from people that were at the meeting where there's 12 or 15 or 20 people at a round table saying, we don't want to review this. We don't want to say a word about this guy.
Wow.
So I don't think I'll ever be in the Hall of Fame. And
I've come to realize that a lot of things attached to Rolling Stone were, growing up with it was like an iconic publication to read. And at one point in time, I thought Dave Marsh was a really cool writer. And then as I started reading more and more of what he has written and said about people like Queen and different things, I suddenly realized that I have a very bad taste in my mouth for the man.
Yeah.
The whole magazine changed. When it was the great big one from L.A. was fantastic.
Yeah.
Then they started to have when it was banned, they started to have too many, almost every second or third page, a full-page tobacco ad. Mm-hmm. When it was taken off the media, it went to print, but it wasn't on radio or TV anymore. They started promoting booze and tobacco, which are basically kill everybody in the world sooner or later.
it wasn't counterculture anymore. It started
it wasn't music. It became a public forum for guys who thought they were really smart, and became a political thing, which they should have left to the New York Times or you know what I mean, or the Washington Post or something. It became a political thing with all these rock writers thinking they're suddenly intellectuals writing about stuff. And when they put the guy on the cover who bombed the Boston Marathon, that was like the end of the world for me. Like, why are they making this guy, and the guy's still alive? You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like stupid. The guy should have been nuked on TV, for Pete's sake. And same with the guy who shot John Lennon. He's still alive.
Yeah.
These things really, really, really bug me.
Well, what do they know? Let's forget about them. Let's not even talk about Rolling Stone anymore.
Good, okay.
Let's talk about your tour. And so are you going to be doing a lot of the Harrison songs then with your show?
I open with about 3 or 4 songs. I open with Between Two Mountains, and then a couple more, and then there's some sprinkled in later on in an encore. And because I say that was from my new album, and we all know George, and the guys are from Liverpool, and I'm from the Liverpool of North America, which is called Winnipeg. So, you know, George was growing up there with John and Paul and Jerry Marsden and all the other Liverpool sound guys. I was growing up in Winnipeg with Burton Cummings, Fred Turner, and Neil Young, and me. And the 4 of us are still around today rocking in the free world. And so here's my story of my intertwining with Burton Cummings, Neil Young, Fred Turner, and all my different bands. And I start with Shakin' All Over and go right through every song, how I ever wrote it. I'm telling stories to the audience. They don't know what the story is about until, bingo, we hit the song, and the song comes in, and their jaws all drop because they don't know where the song came from, and now they know. And then near the end, our encore, we might do While My Guitar Gently Weeps or Taxman as a reprise to the George thing, and then we do Taking Care of Business, which is my favorite story of all. It's about a 10-minute story, and how I wrote that song and how it came to be. And it's kind of a history. It's a historical musical trip timeline of my life, from being like 15, seeing Elvis on TV, and then the Beatles and Hendrix and Cream and everybody else.
Well, I know you've got a limited schedule today, and we got to get you on to your next interview, but I want to thank you for your time today, and thank you for all the great songs along the way, because they all help us remember a simpler time, and everybody can smile when they hear Taking Care of Business or
Thank you.
Anything from the Guess Who. You know, it's just, and I have a friend who we always joke about, Star Baby. She was driving through Iowa City, Iowa one day and was listening to it and wasn't paying attention, and suddenly there were blinking lights behind her. So we look forward to seeing you in town. Thank you for your time today, and we wish you safe travels and a happy holiday season, sir.
Thank you. You too. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Randy Bachman, he's going to be at the RCU Theater, Pablo Center, January 19th. He gave us an insight of what to expect that night, and cool concept with the album.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're in the area and want to get tickets, it's pablocenter.org to get them. We are sneaking right up on the holiday, Finn. What are we going to do for Christmas? Are we doing anything fancy, or are we going to
have a Barstool Rocker Christmas?
That might be something to do on the radio. We could play our songs, play the songs we like. If keep an eye on the webpage, keep an eye on the Facebook page and the Twitter account and stuff. Maybe we'll do something on Christmas.
And meantime,
we'd have to stream it, though.
And meantime, we want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday Season from all of us here at Barstool Rocker.
We're going to have the happiest Christmas since Bing Crosby tap danced with Danny Kaye. And when Santa squeezes his fat white ass down that chimney tonight, he's going to find the jolliest bunch of assholes this side of the nut house.